So with only 20 or so NBA games left of the regular season, the obvious hot topic in the NBA is the playoffs. I'm just going to get right into the video. In today's video, I'm going to be using the standings we have now, statistics, and my own opinion to determine which 8 teams I think are going to make the NBA playoffs. There's going to be 3 parts to this video. I am going to do my locks, aka my top 6 teams for each conference. I will then be choosing my 4 play-in teams, and using the play-in tournament format, I will be determining the 8 teams I think will make the NBA playoffs for each conference. So let's get right into the video. The first thing I am going to be doing is my playoff locks, aka the top 6 teams in each conference. We're going to get started with the Eastern Conference. So, for the Eastern Conference, at the end of the season, my number 1 seed is going to still be the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat will be followed up by the Chicago Bulls as the number 2 seed and the Milwaukee Bucks as the 3 seed. Miami is just such an elite team. They're a great two-way team offensively and defensively. They have chemistry and a leader in Kyle Lowry, along with their star in Jimmy Butler. They've also been succeeding while unhealthy, so if they do get healthy, they are going to remain at the top of the Eastern Conference. For the Bulls and the Bucks, they're just going to be behind the Heat by a few games. The Bulls, they also have been succeeding while unhealthy, and when they return, they're also going to be deadly. Led by their MVP candidate in DeMar DeRozan and a top duo in the league in DeRozan and LaVine. For the Bucks, Giannis is just playing like a downright MVP, and the rest of the team is perfect around him, providing him with spacing. My 4th seed is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers, after trading for James Harden, are now in a contending spot, and I think come playoff time, they have the potential to definitely do some damage. My 5th seed is going to be the very underrated and very surprising Cleveland Cavaliers. They have their all-star player and a top 10 point guard in Darius Garland, along with amazing bigs in Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Lauri Markkanen, etc. The pick and roll game is going to be amazing come playoff time, and they also have a new addition in Karis LeVert. And then my final team, this was pretty tough, but I ended up going with the Brooklyn Nets as the 6th seed. After trading James Harden for Ben Simmons, there have been a lot of questions on is this team going to fit together. Personally, I think there will be some chemistry issues, but when Kevin Durant returns, when New York lifts the vaccine mandate and Kyrie can play every game, and when Ben Simmons goes back to his all-star self, the Nets theoretically can definitely do some damage. So here is a look at my 6 locks for the Eastern Conference, and now let's move on to my locks for the Western Conference. For the Western Conference, the top 3 teams are going to stay the same. The Phoenix Suns will be the number 1 seed, the Golden State Warriors will be the number 2 seed, and the Memphis Grizzlies will be the number 3 seed. These have been the 3 elite teams and the 3 best teams in the entire NBA in general. The Suns will be getting the 1 seed. They'll have home court advantage. They are just such an amazing team. They're the perfect mix of offense, defense, chemistry. And the Warriors are not too far behind. If Steph Curry does come back to his full 100% self, then they definitely can catch up to the Suns. But I'll have them at the number 2 seed. And the Memphis Grizzlies, one of the most entertaining teams to watch, led by superstar in Ja Morant. My 4th seed is going to be the Dallas Mavericks. I think even though they traded Kristaps Porzingis, it is a questionable trade because now they don't have a true big man. I think Luka Doncic, now with Spencer Dinwiddie on his team, he is going to have the ability to work off ball more, and I think he's going to carry the Mavericks to a very good record in these last 20 games, and I think they'll propel to the 4th seed. And then finally, I have the Utah Jazz as the 5th seed, and I have the Denver Nuggets as the 6th seed. The Jazz have definitely been disappointing compared to the start of the season, and with these last few games, I only expect them to lose majority of them. They got a great team all around, but personally, I think the Mavericks are just going to do better in these stretch of games than the Jazz are. And finally, for the Denver Nuggets, it's pretty simple. 2 words, Nikola Jokic. Jokic has done wonders to this team, and he is the reason why they're still contending for the playoffs. Without him, the rest of the team is pretty bad, and he's really helped an injury-riddled Nuggets team, and I think he's going to keep them at the 6th seed, just out of the play-in tournament. So those are my playoff locks for both conferences. Now we're going to move on to the second segment of this video. I will be choosing my 4 play-in teams for each conference. Once again, we are going to be starting off with the Eastern Conference. I'm going to be eliminating the Pacers, Pistons, and Magic, obviously 3 terrible teams, which leaves us with 6 teams left: the Boston Celtics, Toronto Raptors, Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta Hawks, Washington Wizards, and New York Knicks. I'm going to eliminate the Wizards and the Knicks because I don't see these teams making the play-in tournament. The Knicks, they've already dug a hole too deep for them to escape, so I have them out. And for the Washington Wizards, Bradley Beal is out for the season, and I don't think Kristaps Porzingis can carry a decently deep team to the play-in tournament. So that leaves us with the Celtics, Raptors, Hornets, and Hawks, and now all that's left to do is seed them. Coming in at my 7th seed, I have the Toronto Raptors, and no, I'm not being biased. I think the Raptors, now that they're healthy, they definitely have the potential to go on big winning streaks that can propel them to the 7th seed. As for the Boston Celtics, who are going to be my 8th seed, they've definitely shown that they can be inconsistent at times, and they're too reliant on their stars. So with that, I have them at the 8th seed. My 9th seed is going to be the Atlanta Hawks. I think they've also proved that they can go on big win streaks, and I think they're going to pick it up, become the 9th seed, which means that the Charlotte Hornets are the 10th seed. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the Hornets. Yes, they score the most points in the entire NBA, and they definitely have the most entertaining team to watch. Their defense is just so bad. They have so many defensive breakdowns, and I don't trust them to win enough games to clinch them into the playoffs. So here is a quick look at my Eastern Conference play-in seedings. Let's now move on to the Western Conference. For the West, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. My 4 teams are going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves, Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, and I'm actually going to go with the San Antonio Spurs here. People don't realize that the Spurs literally have a top offense in the league, along with great defensive-minded players, and also an amazing coach in Greg Popovich, and they pretty much lead the league in assists. Compared to the Trailblazers and the Pelicans, I actually have the Spurs winning significantly more games than them in this final stretch. So now all that's left to do is seed them. Coming in at the 7th seed, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have really surprised me, and compared to the other teams, I think that they have a better chance of maintaining their success. My 8th seed is going to be the Los Angeles Clippers. The Clippers have actually surprised me. Kawhi Leonard has not played all year. Paul George has barely played, and yet their role players have really stepped it up, and they're playing like an actual good basketball team. So I have them at the 8th seed. The 9th seed is going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers are obviously the most disappointing team in the NBA. They pretty much prove that you can't just put together a bunch of stars. You have to have other factors like chemistry. And what the Lakers have taught us is Russell Westbrook does not fit. And the 10th seed is going to be the San Antonio Spurs. They definitely can honestly be the 9th seed. I just don't see it happening. I think they're going to be the 10th seed. So here is a look at both sides' play-in seedings. For the Eastern Conference, I have the Raptors, Celtics, Hawks, and Hornets. And for the Western Conference, I have the Timberwolves, Clippers, Lakers, and Spurs. Now let's move on to the final part, segment, chapter, whatever you want to call it, of this video. I will now be predicting these play-in matchups to determine who will join the other teams in the NBA playoffs. I'm basically just going to briefly explain how the play-in tournament works. The 7th seed will host the 8th seed for one game. Winner makes the playoffs as the 7th seed. The 9th seed will then host the 10th seed, where the winner will play the loser of the 7-8 game, and the loser of that game goes home. The winner of the 9-10 game and the loser of the 7-8 game will then play, and the winner will get the 8th seed. Starting off with the Eastern Conference, the 7th seed Raptors taking on the 8th seed Celtics. I have the Celtics winning this one game. The Raptors can definitely beat them in the 7-game series because they're a much more consistent and a much more well-rounded team. But in one game, I expect Tatum, Jaylen Brown, somebody to have a big night. And I have the Celtics making the playoffs as the 7th seed. And now for the 9 versus 10 seed, the Atlanta Hawks taking on the Charlotte Hornets. Loser goes home. This might shock some people, but I have the Charlotte Hornets. I know Atlanta is a much better team, but similar to the Celtics, in one game, I think the Hornets have a better chance of winning. Yes, they don't play defense, but they have multiple guys like LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre, Miles Bridges. They have so many players that can explode for 25 plus points. Plus, Atlanta's defense isn't much better than the Hornets, so there's going to really be no one to stop Charlotte's amazing offensive players. So I have Atlanta going home and the Raptors taking on the Hornets. Winner makes playoffs as the 8th seed. I'm going with the Toronto Raptors. In one game, I think Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes are all going to play their role perfectly, and I think they're going to beat the Hornets in one game. As I'm recording this, they just got beat down by Charlotte. I think it was like yesterday or the day before. But I think if they played a game and the Raptors were fully healthy, they would win. So the Toronto Raptors are going to the playoffs as the 8th seed. So now, recapping the Eastern Conference, I have the Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, Cleveland Cavaliers, Brooklyn Nets, Boston Celtics, and Toronto Raptors making the NBA playoffs in that order. Now moving on to the Western Conference, the Timberwolves taking on the Clippers. Winner makes playoffs as the 7th seed. I have the Timberwolves making it, assuming PG-13 and Kawhi are not back by that time. They might be. I think the Timberwolves are going to win this one low-key pretty easily. The Lakers taking on the Spurs. Loser goes home, and I have the Lakers winning it. I don't know if the Spurs are experienced enough, other than Greg Popovich, to beat the Lakers. Yes, the Lakers have been disappointing, but if they're on and they're all playing like a team, then they definitely can do something. And now we have the LA Clippers versus the LA Lakers. Loser goes home. Winner makes playoffs as the 8th seed. This one's really tough. It's so hard to choose who's going to win in just one game. I think I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Lakers. Realistically, I don't see them not making the playoffs. Plus, the Clippers are very unhealthy, and they've shown that they can really be cold on both ends of the floor. Lakers, in one game, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, they are going to get the job done. So the Western Conference playoffs are going to be the Phoenix Suns, Golden State Warriors, Memphis Grizzlies, Dallas Mavericks, Utah Jazz, Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Los Angeles Lakers. Those are my playoff predictions for both sides. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.